Hello, this is Susan reading to you from the Provincetown banner. Today is Thursday, August 14th, 2025. On the front page today, Tall Ship. Calmore Nickel has a perfect day for a sail out of Provincetown. By Susan Vaughn. From her perch on the upper deck of the tall ship, Calmore Nickel, Captain Lauren Morgans, shouted out orders to her crew on which ropes to pull to raise or lower the different sails. Directly below, a crew member commandeered the whipstaff, a long wooden pole connected to the tiller to steer the ship. As she moved the whipstaff from side to side, the crew member told a visitor that the ship had been designed before ship's wheels had been invented. Morgans was keeping an eye on two men who climbed up the ropes to put the rigging in place. She kept reminding one hand on the shroud. The passengers and crew of the Calmore Nickel, based in Delaware, agreed the sunny 70-degree weather was perfect on the morning of Friday, August 8, except for not quite enough wind during the ship's first sail out of Provincetown Harbor during its 9-day stay. The ship visited Provincetown last year. It was easy for the nearly 50 passengers who signed up for the 2.5-hour trip to spot the square-rigged, full-scale replica of the Swedish ship at the end of Macmillan Wharf, with its huge masts flying the flags of the United States, Sweden, and Finland. The original incarnation of the ship brought settlers to present-day Delaware in 1638 to start the first permanent European settlement in the Delaware Valley called New Sweden. The passengers soon learned a lot more about the impressive replica built in the mid-1990s from the crew of 29, 5 staff and 24 volunteers. The well-versed volunteers, who range in age from 14 to 80, shared history and many facts about the ship with the visitors throughout the voyage while attending to their assigned jobs. 7 miles of rope on Calmore Nickel. Volunteer crew member Ken Pinault, 66, formerly of New Hampshire, who now lives in Wilmington, Delaware, said the ship is run like those of the 17th century. The ship has 7 miles of rope, is 98 feet long at waterline, and 141 feet total length. All the ropes do something. All are handmade, Pinault said. He pointed out the ironwork, handmade by a female blacksmith, and the many carvings around the boat were based on drawings of the mothership Vasa. It's 90% authentic, he said. Sails are made by the DuPont Company of recycled plastic. The cannons fire 6-pound balls, and the Swedish naval flag is the only one allowed to fly out of Sweden, another crew member said. Singing a sea chanty on Calmore Nickel. After getting safety tips in how to maneuver the tight ship and spiral stairs to the upper deck, passengers were soon called on to help pull the heavy rope lines. Second mate Ada Morgan Russell called out the commands that raised the topsail and mainsail while the crew and visitors sang a sea shanty. Heave away, haul away. Morgan said the topsail is raised to help catch more wind, as the wind speed was probably under 5 knots, so the ship wasn't going too far out that day. A crew member who works full-time, but took the week off to make the voyage to the Cape, described the extensive training the volunteers go through during a 3-week period or 10 weekends to learn about being a deckhand. They can graduate to deck chief and add training to do maintenance and some log up to thousands of hours on the ship, she said. The ship has an educational program for fourth graders in the spring and fall to learn about a part of their Delaware history, she said. The Calmore Nickel Foundation is a nonprofit educational organization that provides many programs and events all year. The passengers all shared some of their impressions of the voyage. "We got to do the heave-ho," said Diane Allen of North Truro in Florida, who was with her husband Ernie Crawford. It was their second attempt to sail on the Calmore Nickel because their voyage last year was canceled because of weather, so Allen made sure she signed up again. Several passengers came in groups. David Scarchilli of Yarmouthport, who has sailed a lot in smaller boats, brought his son-in-law Joe Malloy of Palmer and 4 other friends who helped pull the lines. Scarchilli, 77, said he would like to climb the ropes. State Rep Hadley Luddy D. Orleans and Chief Executive Officer of the Homeless Prevention Council of Orleans brought her staff on the voyage for their annual summer outing. They loved it. "I'm interested in this. I'd like to volunteer," said Sonny Battams, Council Intake Coordinator. "It's so beautiful. I've never been on a sailboat," said Dottie Rose, the Council's Youth and Young Adult Case Manager. Sails on the Calmore Nickel from Provincetown are scheduled through August 17th. However, several have sold out. For availability, check the website calmorenickel.org or call 302-429-7447. In other news, Federal Agency Shifts Decision on Offshore Wind by Heather McCarran. State and local officials and regional advocacy groups are split over the federal government's decision to back off on offshore wind projects, a shift that casts uncertainty over new projects nationwide but doesn't affect leases east and south of Cape Cod. State Rep. Stephen Zoros, R. West Barnstable, welcomes the changes as a necessary course correction. It reflects what many of us on Cape Cod and across the Commonwealth have been saying for some time. The rush to industrialize our oceans has gone too far, too fast, and without enough science, transparency, or respect for local communities, he said. He added that the action gives us a critical opportunity to pause, reassess, and get this right. Offshore wind is not inherently bad, but it must be pursued responsibly, with full transparency, sound science, environmental safeguards, and local input from the communities expected to bear the impact, Zaros said. On July 30th, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management dropped the sails on all ocean areas previously set aside for future offshore wind projects, halting new leases and adding to the turbulence around an industry that's seen anything but smooth sailing in the last few years. Projects, including those started or planned south of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, are still moving forward, but industry analysts say the federal policy shift could shake investor confidence, disrupt supply chains, and slow both current work and future expansion. As part of the policy shift, the Bureau said August 4th it will also scrape a rule requiring the Interior Secretary to publish a 5-year schedule of expected offshore wind lease sales every 2 years, a mandate the agency says isn't legally required and limits flexibility. Dustin Delano, Chief Operating Officer of the New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association, welcomed the federal agency's move to scrap the leasing schedule. By removing the arbitrary and mandatory 5-year leasing timeline, The Department of the Interior can now take the time needed to evaluate ocean conditions and assess the impacts offshore wind poses on marine life, he said. Not everyone sees the action as a step forward. State Senator Julian Cyr D. Truro said responsibly developed offshore wind remains an essential part of addressing climate change and reducing fossil fuel-driven energy costs. It is alarming to see the country turn its back on our obligation and responsibility to our shared planet, he said. Clean energy advocates like American Clean Power, the main trade group representing the U.S. clean energy industry, are voicing similar concerns. CEO Jason Grumet called the directives a confusing mix of unprecedented requirements that could block electricity from the grid, leading to higher prices, lost jobs, and decreased system reliability. He warned the federal action marks an unprecedented level of interference in private economic activity and poses a serious challenge for critical infrastructure investment of any kind. More than 3.5 million acres of as-yet unleased federal waters, including 4 of 8 sites in the Gulf of Maine, sites off California, Oregon, the Gulf of Mexico, the New York Bight, the Central Atlantic, and some areas south of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, are no longer designated for wind energy development. But the 3 Gulf of Maine lease areas east of Wellfleet and Truro, plus 1 to the northeast of them, totaling more than 360,000 acres, starting about 24 miles offshore, are still in play. Leases for these sites were awarded to Avangrid Renewables and Invenergy NE Offshore Wind in October 2024. Cape leaders, local voices left out. When expansion of offshore wind development in the Gulf of Maine was announced last year, it was met with concern from Cape Cod's municipal leaders. Mark Force, president of the Cape and Islands Municipal Leaders Association, said the latest decision comes as no surprise. In July 2024, the association sent a letter to the Bureau outlining 13 concerns about the leasing plan, including questions about floating turbines, impacts on fisheries, and potential environmental effects. Forrest said the group's central message was clear. Local voices need to be part of the process. I think the problem that has plagued a lot of these projects has been the lack of engagement across the board, he said. I think if offshore wind is going to be looked at seriously in the future, local involvement is critical. The Department of the Interior has also promised stronger rules for how coastal towns, native nations, and fishing communities are consulted on offshore wind projects. State, local, and environmental leaders have begun weighing in on the federal policy shift, and reactions are mixed. Nantucket urges tougher oversight of current projects. Nantucket officials, long vocal on offshore wind, said they're still reviewing the changes, but believe the withdrawn lease areas are much farther offshore and may have posed fewer risks to marine life, scenic views, and the island's tourism economy than the already leased areas. No changes have been made to the existing lease areas, which means hundreds of turbines will still dominate Nantucket's horizon for years to come, they noted in an August 1st statement. Town leaders said that's why BOEM should step up enforcement of current federal rules, not just tighten future ones, and are calling for stronger oversight on projects already in motion, including Vineyard Wind. New rules reflect Trump-era shift. The federal agency says it's stepping back from what it calls a speculative approach to planning, that is, marking large areas of ocean before full project reviews or commitments. Its new directive follows Secretary's Order 3437, issued from the Department of the Interior on July 29, which aims to end preferential treatment for foreign-controlled energy projects. It also stays on course with President Trump's January 20th memo pausing offshore wind leasing and ordering a review of permitting practices. In our next story on the front page, Wild Care of Eastham, Saving Cape Cod's Turtles One Egg at a Time, by Heather McCarran. On Cape Cod, the summer roads are no place for a turtle. Each year, as temperatures climb, female turtles begin their ancient march in search of the perfect nesting spot. And every year, many are struck and killed before they ever get there. But this year, something innovative is happening behind the scenes to help. At WildCare, a wildlife rehabilitation center in Eastham, more than 75 turtle eggs rescued from the bodies of mothers who didn't make it and from living reptiles who couldn't wait to lay are now nestled safely in improvised incubators, growing quietly toward life. The rescue effort has also inspired a unique way to support the work. After a donor reached out asking to name one of the hatchlings Joel, WildCare has launched a naming fundraiser, giving the public a chance to take part in the story. A second chance in a shell. All too often, calls come in to WildCare about turtles hit by cars, sometimes alive, sometimes not. This season, most of the eggs now incubating were recovered from turtles that were run over and didn't survive their injuries. Among them are 32 common snapping turtle eggs, which have now passed the 60-day mark of what can be a 100-day incubation. All are almost entirely dark inside, meaning they are due to hatch any day now, said wildlife rehabilitator Chelsea Peck, who is overseeing the eggs. The unhatched group also includes 10 eastern box turtles, a species of special concern because of habitat loss and declining numbers. 4 embryos are clearly visible inside the shells, and WildCare staff are keeping a close eye on the rest. Most of the eggs, 33, are from northern diamondback terrapins, a species listed as threatened in Massachusetts. WildCare Executive Director and Rehabilitator Stephanie Ellis pointed out that terrapins are the only salt marsh turtle in the United States, and we have their northernmost breeding range right here, which is pretty special. The eggs were gathered from 3 mothers, and their successful hatching could have a meaningful impact for a population under pressure from coastal development and road mortality, according to WildCare. Innovation in incubation. Hatching wild turtle eggs is a delicate and unpredictable job. The conditions must be just right, warm, consistent, and humid, and even then, success isn't guaranteed. We haven't had much luck using the traditional incubators. It's been hit or miss, said Ellis. This summer, the team is trying a new approach, using standard chest coolers, the kind meant for drinks or barbecues, with moss-lined trays holding the eggs. Inside each cooler, a bucket of water with a small heater helps maintain the proper humidity level, simulating natural nesting conditions ideal for each species. We open them once a day just for airflow, Peck said. The WildCare staff learned about the incubating method at Wildlife Rehabilitators Association of Massachusetts conference, where Berkshire County Turtle Rescue President Rehabilitator Tracy Zustra gave a presentation. She has done this for years, and she always has success, Peck said. Naming the next generation. As hatchlings start to emerge, WildCare is offering the public a way to be part of their journey. For a donation, supporters can name a hatchling, receive an e-certificate, and see the turtle's photo and name featured on WildCare's social media. We don't usually name things at WildCare because we don't want to get attached, Ellis said. But the team couldn't pass up the opportunity to advance their mission while also getting people excited about wildlife rehab and raising awareness about the challenges turtles face. How to help turtles cross the road. Turtles have been around longer than dinosaurs, yet they face growing risk in the modern world. They lay few eggs, and most hatchlings don't survive, so losing just one nesting female can have lasting consequences. We've treated around 79 to 80 turtles this year for hit-by-car injuries, cold-stunned diamondback terrapins, and botfly larvae infestations, Ellis said. Cars cause most turtle injuries and deaths. If it's clear a turtle isn't going to survive, they should still be brought in for humane euthanasia. Otherwise, they literally sit and bake and take hours to die because of their slow metabolism, she said. People can help turtles they see in the road, but there are rules. If you find a turtle in the road, you always want to move them in the direction that they're going, Peck said. If they are placed back where they came from, she noted, they're just going to go right back across the road because they are making their way to a particular location. Snapping turtles should be picked up from the back of the shell so that they can't reach you and bite you, she said. Terrapins and box turtles can be lifted with one hand on top and one underneath for support. Ellis said people should help turtles across the road only if it can be done safely. They should not be taken to a new location because they're likely going to spend all their time trying to get back to where they came from. Don't take them home as pets. Too often people take turtles from the wild and then a few years later they're big and they don't want them anymore, Ellis said. Just keep them in the wild. If you find an animal in distress, call WildCare at 508-240-2255. And our final front page story. Moon jellyfish aren't supposed to sting, but on Cape Cod, they do, by Heather McCarran. Unusually large moon jellyfish drifting in massive groups called smacks that can stretch nearly a mile have been stinging many swimmers along the Nantucket Sound shoreline in Mashpee and nearby Cape Cod towns. The culprit seems to be Aurelia aurita, the common moon jelly, a species long thought to be harmless to people. But local marine researcher and educator Nicole Corbett, president and executive director of the Papaneset Water Stewardship Alliance, isn't so sure anymore. Moon jellies aren't supposed to sting, she said, but these buggers are evil. Corbett would know. She first encountered the moon jellies as a teenager in 2007 at Papaneset Beach. That day she was stung, not severely, but enough to remember the lingering burn and itch. The sensation caught her off guard. At the time, she understood that Aurelia aurita's stinging cells, nematocysts, were generally too small and weak to affect human skin. Years later, when she described the experience to aquarists and researchers during an internship at the New England Aquarium, they said they'd never heard of moon jelly stinging people. But the years kept proving otherwise. Corbett continued to encounter the jellies herself, and more beachgoers from Barnstable to Falmouth began reporting similar stings. Itchy, burning sensations that appeared without warning and lasted for hours. Over time, She also noticed the local jellyfish were changing, growing larger, arriving earlier, and lingering later into the fall. Corbett, who worked with jellyfish at the New England Aquarium, knew the standard behavior of moon jellies. She handled them without hesitation, no stings. So why were these lashing out? Now, Corbett is spearheading an investigation, drawing in researchers from Montclair State University in New Jersey, Northeastern University, the University of California, and even the University of Hawaii. She's also collaborating with researchers up and down the East Coast to collect moon jelly tissue samples for genetic barcoding and comparison to get a cleaner picture. Together, they're piecing together clues to unravel questions about what exactly these jellies are, a new subspecies or an existing invasive species. Or could they be exhibiting a mutation or an adaptation in response to warming oceans and shifting ecosystems tied to climate change? An initial DNA barcoding analysis through Northeastern's Ocean Genome Legacy Project in 2023 offered an intriguing clue. While Corbett's samples from local waters clearly belonged to the Aurelia genus, their species markers didn't match any known moon jelly species, raising the possibility that Cape Cod's moon jellies may represent a distinct, previously undocumented lineage, or that they are evolving into something new. Here's another twist. It appears these typically harmless creatures are not only stinging swimmers, but they may be doing it without even making contact. Corbett suspects a mucus coating on the jellies could be the real culprit. What we're finding is when we take these out of the water, they're giving off a lot of mucus, she said. That slime could be floating freely in the water and stinging swimmers from a distance. Something like this has been seen in other jellyfish, like Cassiopeia, the upside-down jellyfish, which releases a venomous mucus cloud that's believed to protect its eggs. There's a lot of debate about whether moon jellies are one global cosmopolitan species because they easily transport from one area to another. Corbett's research is helping to shape public response. She's worked with local neighborhood groups to place 18 jellyfish first aid kits along the private frontage of Popponesset Beach. She'd like to expand kit deployments to public beaches if towns express an interest. Corbett is also tracking the Atlantic bay nettle, a jellyfish more common in southern waters that's been appearing with increasing frequency along Cape Cod's south-facing shores. She's investigating whether warming waters might be encouraging local nurseries to form. Between the bay nettles and the moon jellies, Corbett is starting to piece together a bigger picture of how shifting ocean conditions may quietly be reshaping marine life along the Cape, one jellyfish at a time. And this has been Susan reading to you from the Provincetown Banner. Again, today is Thursday, August 14th.